because we do have presidential candidate Donald Trump on the phone with us right now. Mr. Trump, thank you for being with us.
Good morning.
We appreciate it. You said in an interview this morning that you would close up our borders, that we are lax and we are foolish. What do you mean by that?
Well, we're taking in people that we have no idea who they are, where they're from. We don't have documentation. We're taking them in from the migration. We're taking them in from Syria. We have absolutely no idea who they are. It's not working. You look at what's going on in Brussels and Paris and many other cities, and you look at what's taking place in Germany, which is a catastrophic event that took place with Germany. What Merkel did was a massive mistake, which will go down as that. It's not working. It won't work. And we have to be very, very careful. We have to be very vigilant, and we have to be very careful in our country. We already have enough problems.
How sure are you, though, that doing something like that, shutting down the border, would really make a difference? I mean, in Europe and in Belgium and in France, we're talking about people, young men, who have lived in the country for years. We're not talking about somebody who slipped through the border last week with a plan in place. Would that really make much of a difference to shut down the borders?
Oh, sure. We have people living in our country that are not looking to do good for our country and that don't love our country, and they're here. And with that, you have to be very careful. You have to be very vigilant. You have to be very careful, and they have to be watched. I mean, we have that, but we're allowing thousands of people to come into our country that we have no idea who they are. We're allowing people to come in from the migration from Syria. They don't have documentation. I mean, they feel they know who they are, but they don't really know who they are. There's no documentation. Nobody knows really from where they came and who they are. And we have to be very careful because it's all not working. Brussels was one of the great cities of the world, one of the most beautiful and safest cities of the world. Now it's a horrible city. It's a horror show. There's been no assimilation. You take a look at the man that was just captured. He was being guarded and protected by the people, by his friends, instead of being turned into the police, because he killed 130, was responsible for the killing of 130 people plus in Paris. And you can't have that. There's no assimilation whatsoever. They want to go by Sharia law, not our laws. And we have to be extremely careful.
So, Mr. Trump, be specific, though. If you're President Trump today and we see what's unfolding in Belgium, do you shut down the airports? Do you not allow tourists to travel from Belgium, from France, from the Middle East? Specifically, how would you implement something like that? What are we looking at?
I would be extremely careful about people from the Middle East coming into our country. I would be extremely careful as to what's going on. You have an ISIS problem that's a massive problem. They want to come in, they want to do big damage, and I would be extremely careful about that.
Would you question them at the airports and at the checkpoints?
Absolutely. Why not? I mean, that's
what
the
would
thing.
you ask them?
I would want good documentation. I would want to know where they came from, like other countries do, like some countries do, not too many anymore, but like other countries do. Look, if you would have known Brussels 20 years ago, you would have seen a place that was like one of the truly great places, one of the most magnificent cities in the world with no crime. Today it's an armed camp. You see soldiers walking all over the streets. And I'm not talking about today after the attack. I'm talking about before the attack. It's an armed camp. They have areas in Brussels where the police can't even go there. The police are afraid to go there. The police don't even go there. And it's a mess. And if you look at Paris, believe me, it's the same thing. It's pretty close. And it'll be the same thing. It might be worse, if you want to know the truth.
So
all of these cities that we think so much of, they're from different planets right now, all because of the fact that you allowed people into the cities that shouldn't be in there, frankly.
So what do you think President Obama should do today? What would you like to see him say or do?
He should be vigilant. We should be vigilant at our borders. We have to have stronger borders. We need safety in our country. We have to have much stronger borders than we do. Our southern border is Swiss cheese. Our airports are very weak and very lax. People can get in with false passports. All the time they do it. We have to be much tougher. We have to be much stronger. We have to have a strong country. And we have to, we have to be very smart, very vigilant, and very tough.
You talk about the borders, the southern border, but also the northern border. You have thousands of trucks going in and out, bringing goods and services. It would totally disrupt our economy in some ways to shut down the border.
I didn't say shut it down. I said you have to be very careful. You have to be careful as to who's coming into our country. We have a country, and we have a country that doesn't have borders for the most part. Certainly on the southern side, it doesn't have a border. It's like a piece of Swiss cheese. People pour in. They do whatever they want to do. We have to be very, very careful, and we have to be much tougher than we've been. People can come into this country at will, and we can't allow that to happen anymore. And you look at some of the countries and look at what's going on throughout the world. You look at what just took place in Brussels, and that's peanuts compared to what's going to happen, because we're not tough enough, and frankly, our leaders aren't smart enough. We have to have very strong borders.
So I want to clarify, because earlier this morning you said that you would shut down the border. Now you're saying you wouldn't shut down the border. Which is it?
No, I didn't say shut down the border. What I said is we have to be very, very strong and vigilant at the borders. We have to be very, very tough on the borders. And people, by the way, from certain parts of the world, like Syria, without documentation, should not be allowed in our country. We cannot allow people in our country who, so maybe that's what you misunderstood.
Okay.
People from Syria, people from certain parts of the world cannot be allowed to come into our country. They have no documentation. We have people coming into our country that are undocumented. We have no idea who they are, where they come from. They could be ISIS related. We can't allow that to happen.
But, Mr. Trump, you talk about, people from Syria and other parts of the Middle East. But when we look at the most recent terrorist attacks here, we're talking about people living in Brussels, people from France, when I think of the Charlie Hebdo, their attacks. These are probably, in some cases, people who are traveling on European passports. Wouldn't it be very difficult to sort of isolate, particular people from Syria and say those are the people that are most likely to be troublemakers? Aren't you sort of going back to this line of, hey, if you have a Muslim-sounding name, that's enough to make you suspicious? And is that really fair?
Well, it's not a question of fair. It's a question of smart. It's a question of take a look at what's going on in the world. Take a look at Paris, what happened there. They weren't exactly from Sweden that did the shootings. Take a look at, even in the United States, if you look at California with the 14 people that were killed by the woman who probably radicalized the other guy, or who knows, they were radicalized in any event, and they went in and shot their co-workers and brutally killed 14 people, with other people being badly injured. You take a look at what's going on. At some point, we have to say, hey, look, this is not working. It's not working. They are not assimilating. The assimilation is not working for anybody. Not working for them either, probably. But we can't have a country based on that, and they want Sharia law. Sharia law is a disaster. By the way, Sharia law for women is catastrophic. It's catastrophic for women. We can't have a situation like this. So people can be smart or they can be politically correct. If they're going to be politically correct, guess what? We're going to have trouble like you've never seen before.
Well, along those lines, I think when you look at the attackers in this case and in the case in France, most of the attackers were born in Brussels and in France. Would you call for a ban now on American-born Muslims? Would you extend the ban?
No, we have people in our country, and we have to protect the people in our country, but we do have to be careful. There's no question about it. We have people in our country, living in our country, that want to do great harm to our country, so we have to be careful. But I've been talking about this for a long time. We have to be. If you look at Brussels now and look at Brussels 20 years ago, you're talking about two different worlds. You're talking about a city that's under siege and will be. Because it's different. It's different laws, it's different customs, and there's no assimilation. And they hid this thug that killed 130 people, helped kill 130 people in Paris. He was right under the police's nose. He lived right next to where he used to live. And they didn't find him because his friends were totally protecting him instead of turning him into authorities. They found him by accident.
So you're talking about Salah Abdeslam, who crossed over from France back into Belgium, was living in the neighborhood where he essentially grew up. In the past you have said things...
And he was being protected. And by the way, he was being protected totally by his friends.
In the past you've said things like torture works. How do you think Belgium authorities should be dealing with Salah Abdeslam?
Well, I would say torture is look, he knows a lot of things that are happening, and he knows a lot of attacks will take place, and he knows who's doing the attacking, most likely, And when the attacks, they have to get this information. They can't get this information in 9 months from now. You have to be tough and you have to be vigilant, but you have to be tough and smart. But you know, he knows something that's going on. Here's a guy that was living in the community. He just killed 130 people, and he's living in the community where he grew up like nothing happened.
Well, a number of our
right under the eyes of the police, and all of the people in that community knew he was there, knew he was desperately wanted. He was the #1 wanted person in the world, and he lived there very nicely. They didn't turn him in, and there could have been hundreds of people that knew they wouldn't turn him in. Look, we can be smart, or we can be extremely dumb, but something has to change, and this is going to happen in the United States, and we're allowing thousands of people to come into the United States from Syria that, you know, we think from Syria. We don't even know if it's from Syria, but we think from the migration. We're allowing thousands of people to come in. They have no documentation. We don't know where they come from. We don't know anything about them. And you watch what's going to be happening.
Well,
would you
ask Americans to profile their neighbors then? If these people are in the country, are you asking people to profile?
Not to profile. I'm asking everybody. Everybody should watch out when they see somebody
what does that mean?
Like him, like in this case. Well, when you see something going on in your neighborhood, you should report it to the police. If you see something like the two young people that got married, where she came in from wherever. Came in from Pakistan, I think, but she came in and she was radicalized. She radicalized him. They had bombs all over their apartment. Now, other people saw those bombs. They knew there were bombs. Nobody reported the police.
Donald Trump, I want to ask you too. Just yesterday, you revealed members of your foreign policy team. Have you spoken to them this morning, and how are they advising you?
Well, I have a very fine team. It will be announced. The entire team will be announced soon, but we have a very strong team. And I have not spoken to them this morning. I will be speaking to them later on. And, you know, and I will tell you right now, what are they going to advise me? If they don't advise me to be very strong and very tough at the borders, then I'm probably not a big fan of that particular person. I understand foreign policy. I understand security as well as anybody. We have to be very, very strong at our borders, and we have to let people in that are going to be wonderful people for our country, not people that are going to blow up, our buildings and our airports.
All right, Donald Trump, thank you so much for calling in and speaking with us.
Okay, thank you very much.